The US population is primarily distributed among big cities and their respective suburbs. How did things get this way, and will they be this way forever? What does this mean for the current generation of young people? The recent history of our population distribution begins roughly in the 1940s. Most people had either been living in cities or in rural areas up until World War II, when popular life patterns began to shift. When soldiers came back from the war, they received government subsidies to settle down and buy homes, and the 1950s vision of suburbia emerged. Suddenly, there was a huge market for planned towns outside of the city. People, particularly young veteran men, wanted homes and lives that looked like this. They could have a house on a cul-de-sac, a pretty and safe neighborhood for their kids to play in, and a nice job just a commute away. It's the American dream. Though suburbanization was a heavily racialized phenomenon due to inequalities in who received subsidies to buy homes and who had generational wealth, a general trend of movement to the suburbs continued through the turn of the century. The overall share of people living in these newly created suburbs rose to over 50% by 2010. As a result, the US has some of the most urban sprawl, measured here by a street network connectedness index, of any country in the world. Generally, this means that our streets are less connected and less efficiently designed, and our homes are more spread out. Streets that look like this are designed for this 1950s ideal life that I just talked about, but they use up more land and force people to make longer commutes in the process. Urban sprawl poses a huge issue because of the impacts of commuting on our climate. This figure shows the breakdown of the average person's daily traveling in various cities around the world. Cities and countries and regions with more urban sprawl have a far higher average use of private cars, which are the most detrimental form of transport on our climate. Urban sprawl creates unwalkable, unconnected streets that lead to increased pollution. It's also more expensive. The new climate economy estimates that a concerted effort for compact growth rather than urban sprawl could save our world's cities $17 trillion by 2050. This money would be saved through decreased commuting costs, maintenance costs, land waste, and other issues. There are a few ways that cities can encourage compact growth: through zoning laws, tax subsidies for residents, new public housing developments, and protected lands in suburban areas. In the 2010s, organizers and local politicians were just really starting to mobilize around these possibilities. Then COVID happened. Suddenly, nobody wants to be in these high population density environments that I've just been advocating for. The air is more polluted, there are more people, there's less space. Sure, it's better for the planet to live compactly, but what about our health and happiness? This graph shows that big cities lost thousands of movers throughout the pandemic, but smaller cities actually gained some movers. Interestingly, we see lots of people in big, dense cities moving to smaller cities on the outskirts of the main urban area. They'll have a little more space, rent will be a little cheaper, they'll still have good food and amenities that they're used to, and they'll be working remotely anyways. This is the future. The rules have changed. For more young people than old, COVID completely prompted their relocation, whether that was due to college classes or a job going remote, or the desire to move somewhere less compact while they still have the flexibility. And in the coming years, even more young people will be graduating into a world of remote work that allows them to choose wherever they want to live. Geographers have actually been theorizing for years that a new model of urban living would someday emerge with population growth and other factors. But COVID has been this big catalyst that the model needed. It expedited a process that may or may not have been inevitable. The edge cities on the left of this diagram will be the post COVID hometowns of choice for our generation. The big city is there for an occasional trip or event, but we'll have everything we need in our smaller, less dense urban environments and reduce our carbon emissions at the same time.